Welcome everyone to this, our spectacular opening night. What a thrill to see you all. I'm Debbie Lee, Festival Director, Melbourne Jewish Book Week. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we are based, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I would also like to spare a moment to express our fervent hope that the hostages in Gaza are released, families reunited with loved ones, and ultimately that humanity and peace prevail for all the innocent people impacted by the horrors of war. We are here tonight to peek over the precipice into the spirit world of ghosts and golems. Our amazing producer, Elise Esther Hearst, has so much spine-tingling excitement in store. And she has form as playwright and author of A Very Jewish Christmas Carol and co-author of Yentl, both plays highly acclaimed, and her first novel shortlisted for the Age Book of the Year award, One Day We Are All Going to Die. And while we're on the macabre, I do want to honour my darling mother who died in my arms on this very day, exactly 12 months ago. I am conjuring her spirit as she absolutely loved the theatre. She also had a serious case of FOMO, which is to say she would have been here with bells on. But such is the cycle of life. Today is also my younger brother's birthday. And he is here in the audience, all the way from Canberra, alongside my older siblings from Sydney. Happy birthday, Johnny. How apt is it then that our overriding theme of the festival is belonging? Clearly this pertains to family, but it also pertains to everybody here tonight. You are here because you belong. It pertains to community, both within the Jewish world and within our wider networks and friendship circles. It is more important than ever that we build and maintain those connections that will sustain us through tough times. I personally lost a dear friend this week. She died suddenly of an aneurysm on Monday night. She was my number one cheerleader, and I can't believe that she is not here. I dedicate this night and the festival to Susie Ashkenazi, my connector to the Melbourne Jewish community, a beautiful soul taken too soon. Another hub of connection is the Avenue Bookstore in Glen Huntly Road, Elstonwick, but tonight, located right here in Glen Ira Town Hall, down the front here. Please do make your way down to the front after the show, as all the authors presenting tonight will be here to sign their books. Purchase your book here, author signing over here. But if you don't get down the front tonight, definitely make sure you go to the hub tomorrow where the Avenue Bookstore will also be. Before I finish, I want to express our heartfelt thanks to our MJBW Foundation partners, Sunraysia and the Crystal Fund, and to all our generous supporters, too many to name. To our board, and in particular our chair, Jo Reish, who is the true definition of a mensch. And to Esther Kister, our guiding force and founding chair, without whom MJBW would not exist. And tonight, we especially thank the Beeson Foundation, our primary supporters for this opening night extravaganza. We are so incredibly grateful. We are also on the edge of our seats, desperate to get on with the show. So without further ado, and with great anticipation, please put your hands together for Elise Esther Hearst and of Ghosts and Golems.
Knock, knock. Knock, knock. You see, you always ask, who's there? Who is it? Who's behind that door? Never open a door to strangers. Never get into a car with strangers. Be wary of the stranger. Be wary of what you cannot see. The year is 1990, a lazy Sunday afternoon, and I'm sitting in the front room of our 100-year-old home in St George's Road, Elstonwick, watching TV. My mother is baking in the kitchen. My brother and his friend are kicking the footy in the backyard. Knock, knock. Okay. I ignore the sound at the door. I'm entranced by whatever Sunday movie is playing, probably one I'd seen before, about a child who has been orphaned or adopted or abandoned or sent to live with a distant relative. Knock, knock. Mum, hands deep in kitchen clutter, shouts down the hall, "Elise, please, will you get the door already?" Knock, knock. I pull myself from the creased folds of our leather couch and head towards the increasingly irritating source of the sound, the door, solid, wooden, painted cream, but for a square lead-light window at the top, through which one might see a face, and a face I do see, that of a man I have not seen before, a stranger. Be wary of what you cannot see. Here I could say that I wasn't thinking, but I was thinking about the movie that continued to play on the TV in my absence. What I wasn't thinking about was asking the key question that follows the knock-knock. Who's there? I open the door, and there in front of me at number 73 St George's Road, Elstonwick, stands the stranger, the head of whom I have already seen, the rest of whom I have not, the rest of whom is completely and utterly naked. "Hello," he says to me. His tone is jovial, friendly, nothing to suggest there's anything unusual about a fully grown man standing completely starkers in my doorway. Do I scream? Yes. Do I slam the door? No. Does my mother come running? Yes, with oven mitts on, no less. By this time, his bare feet have crossed the threshold. "What do you want?" Mum says. Now the boys have come in from outside and the three of us are huddled behind my mother, her oven mitts raised like boxing gloves. His head turns towards the front room and then back to us. "I want to watch TV," he says. My mother, trained in social work and in the heavy lifting of her own familial grief, nods, for it is too late. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, we have invited him in, and the naked man heads towards the warm glow of the Panasonic. Mum grabs the car keys, and I don't know if I have imagined it, but the passports and a family photo album too, for this is what one does when one leaves their home in fearful circumstances, and pushes us all out the door and into the soft womb of the maroon Tarago parked in the driveway. The ignition thrums and we begin to make our escape. Shaking, laughing, crying, my brother and his friend hold my hands, our fingers interlocked, sweaty, jittery. Nobody wears a seatbelt. Where are we going? To the police station. But there is no need, because a police car is slowly ambling towards us and comes to a stop in front of the house next door. It turns out ours was not the only house the naked man visited that Sunday. Ours was just the only house who had ushered him inside. Uniformed officers enter our home. Like me, the naked man doesn't want to be pulled away from the TV, but eventually he goes with them, peacefully and without protest. The policewoman uses her baton to ferry a pile of clothes she has found on the nature strip towards the police car. She returns with a card and tells us to be in touch if we need to talk. Did I need to talk? Of course I needed to talk, or I wanted to talk. I wanted the whole spiel. I wanted to know about the naked man. My mother and I visit the police station some weeks later. "She's been having nightmares," Mum tells the policewoman. "I don't know if it's safe to go outside," I say for dramatic effect. "He's not a bad man," the policewoman tells us. "He was just having a bad day." I think about this, what a bad day could mean for a grown-up. I think he just wanted to watch TV, I say. The policewoman and my mother silently talk to each other with their eyes in a language I cannot understand. Where is he now? I ask. We can't say, the policewoman says, but know this, you are safe. It is in this moment I realise I don't know if I ever felt unsafe. Perhaps I was dreaming. Perhaps my eyes were closed. Tonight, I invite you all to open your eyes and your hearts to honour whatever is in this room and whatever is beyond it. This night, the opening night of Melbourne Jewish Book Week 2024, a group of Jewish artists gather to present you with their own astonishing tales of naked men of sorts, of the mystifying creatures that haunt us, exist within us, who we call on in the darkest of times, who we banish when they no longer serve us. Dare to dream with us and take from this evening what you desire: enchantment, escapism, amusement, healing, protection. Because one might say, these are indeed dark times, but take comfort in the glow from that old TV set in the corner of your mind.
Hello, Mummy!
For now, more than ever, we need to see our Dibbooks and our ghosts and our golems.
Hello, Mummy!
Why are you calling me Mummy?
Because you made me. I'm your gingerbread golem.
What?
Your gingerbread golem. You created me in 2023 for your production of a very Jewish Christmas carol, remember?
Oh, that's right. Sorry, it's taking me a little while to warm up.
I take 20 minutes to warm up, 15 in a fan-forced oven. I'm here to love you, to protect you, and to kill all our enemies.
Oh, let's hope there are none of those here tonight.
I'll keep a lookout.
Thank you, Golem. You've been warned. Our first reader tonight comes all the way from New York. Eleanor Reissa is a storyteller in English and Yiddish, her first language. She's an award-winning director, playwright, actress, singer, translator, choreographer and author, and plays the matriarch in the TV show The Zweiflers. She has sung in every major venue in New York and at international festivals. A daughter of Holocaust fighters, her memoir, The Letters Project, A Daughter's Journey, is a search to discover the truth about her father as well as herself. Please welcome Eleanor Reissa.
Shalom Aleichem, Melbourne. Ghosts. When I was a kid, there was a television show in America called Lassie, which you would think was about a lovely young Irish girl with strawberry blonde hair and a freckled face. But you'd be wrong. In fact, our TV Lassie was a dog, a female collie. Every week, Lassie would appear on the little TV screen in our small apartment in East New York, a multiracial, multi-ethnic, working-class neighborhood in Brooklyn. Lassie lived with her skinny, tow-headed boy, Timmy, on a poor farm in Kansas, or Iowa, or New Jersey. A black and white land whose vibrant colors we could only imagine, golden wheat mixed with sandy soil, blue skies, orange sunsets. Each week, the formula was the same. Some child would sink into quicksand, or poor old grandma would be trapped in a fire, or that mean, gnarly drunk with his gun and bullwhip would violently threaten some innocent woman. It was Lassie's job to save them. "Get help, girl," Timmy would cry, and off she'd go, brave, fearless, barking, endangering her own life to make the world safe.
It was a very popular show, but I couldn't watch it. As soon as the theme music started, Lassie appeared, sitting up on her hind legs like a good dog in a human gesture of welcome. At that moment, I ran straight into my room and locked the door. Oh no, that sweet music and gentle dog meant only one thing: danger. Something bad was going to happen. You could count on it every week, guaranteed. Some injustice, some cruelty, some arbitrary disaster. Somebody was going to get hurt or come really close to death. Sometimes it was even Lassie. No, not for me. I couldn't watch it. The potential for death and the possibility of danger were too much for me. Always. For as long as I can remember, fear of death was greater than death itself. Which brings us finally to ghosts. You might think that they would frighten me too, but in fact they do not. No, they do not scare me at all, possibly because they're already dead, nothing to fear. The danger is past and the worst has already happened. For me, the fear of death, the fear of the worst, beats the worst itself. The dead are already dead, and I can live with that. Ghosts, which I prefer to call spirits or souls, are the representative of lives after death. They populate my inner world, and I'll tell you that they are welcome. Not only are they welcome, but I seek them out. Wie biste, I call. Where are you? That's what writing and storytelling has meant to me in all the mediums, the acting, directing, writing, singing, all of it. An opportunity to alter my reality, to literally rewrite history, to bring them back, bring them home, right the wrongs, correct the injustices, keep them alive, keep the dead alive. Sounds like a scary sci-fi movie, but for me, it's like a family reunion. My greatest wish for as long as I can remember has been the resurrection and reunification with the dead. That sounds so goyish. The dead have always been in my life, mostly as Holocaust people. The living ones, those who miraculously did not succumb to the vast plot to murder them. And then, of course, the many, many, many dead ones from the photos who fought so hard but lost the battle. I have always ached to see them, meet them, speak to them, hold them, kiss them. They are and have been my comfort and my companions, my guides, my rock. I turn to them when I'm afraid or lost or can't sleep, or even when I'm happy. Yes, I am sometimes happy, but don't tell anybody. These neshumas watch over me, fix me, remind me. I bow to them in gratitude. I even think that I owe my life to them, but that's a longer story, maybe for next year. I'm not religious, but I bless them, those spirits. To me, they are God. They kick my sadness and longing off the curb and give me comfort. In every play I've ever written, the dead come back. Somehow, they return in dreams, births, reincarnated as strangers. No matter what lousy event happens in the play, by the end we are reunited and life is repaired. Hooray. Oh my goodness, the joy in that, can you imagine? Tragedies transformed into surprise parties, words of love and pride and advice never before exchanged now flow, melodies learned, jokes even. That's what the ghosts have done, changed the future, my future, life nurtured by death. You may wonder how I do it, how I communicate with them, the dead-ish, as I like to call them. One word, my friends, Yiddish. That's right, Yiddish transcends death. How do you like that? Yiddish encourages conversation. It's pleasant and funny and moving. Who wouldn't come back for a crack at that? Yiddish phrases, idioms, curses, it encourages the deadish to come out of their sleepy shell and have a schmooze with us. Their einiklach, their tantes, tatas, bobbas, zaydas, their kinder, they come out to speak to us. The know-it-alls of this world like to say that Yiddish is dead. They are so mistaken. Perhaps they misheard or misunderstood. Yiddish is not dead. Yiddish is spoken by the dead. Sie verstehen, which fortunately means, my friends, it is worth it for you to learn some Yiddish. It's never too late. You will always have someone to talk to, guaranteed, auf ewig, eternal. So, ghosts, spirits, souls, neshamas, I'm not afraid of them. They are part of my mishpacha. It's Lassie that I'm still afraid of. Thank you.
Our cellists on stage with us tonight are Alice Hurwood and Jeannie Kim. Give a round of applause. Bram Presser hails all the way from St Kilda. He is a semi-reformed punk rocker, recovering academic and lapsed lawyer. His novel, The Book of Dirt, won the National Jewish Book Award for debut fiction, the Voss Prize, and 3 categories at the New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards. In his spare time, Bram reads, reviews, blogs, and judges the odd literary prize. Please welcome Bram Presser.
The Clayman of Ripponlea. When the dust had settled in the alley, waiting to be washed away by the approaching autumn rains, nobody could recall any strange omens that might have foretold what was to come. No red skies, no shooting stars, not even the hint of inclement weather. But they all agreed there must have been something, because one Thursday afternoon in March, much to the surprise of those who were beginning to think about their Shabbat meals, a golem was seen shopping for fruit in Ripponlea. It is possible that in ordinary times, this man of clay would have gone unnoticed, for there was little to give away that he had formed from the banks of the Yarra River, other than a small tumbling of dirt each time he paused to scratch at his dry cheek. But these were not ordinary times. No, these were terrible times, perhaps the worst since the last worst times. These were times of fracture, fear, and despair, when the pious had given up on prayer and the godless beseeched the heavens. Times when one might search for salvation in a slight man, tawny and flaked of complexion, standing among the turnips and sunchokes. Although many would later claim to have been the first to see the Clayman, it was in fact Arya the Nosy who chanced upon him. Arya had long suffered with severe psoriasis, and noticing the golem's brown scales, thought he had found a brother in affliction. Arya sidled up to the golem, picked up 2 beets, and pretended to weigh them. "Shalom Aleichem," he said cheerily. "I have not seen you here before." The golem did not so much as glance at him. Instead, shaking a large celeriac in a subtle but oddly violent way, as if trying not to draw attention to himself. Arya was about to repeat his salutation, this time with a little more vehemence, when he saw that the vegetable appeared to have taken root under the stranger's skin. At that moment, celeriac in hand snapped free from wrist and tumbled to the ground, exploding in an earthy mess at Arya's feet. The clay man looked up in fright, and Arya saw for the first time the letters Aleph, Mem, Tuf, etched faintly above his brow. Aleph, Mem, Tuf, Emet, truth. Panicked, the clay man ran to the exit, trailing wispy dervishes of dust, and would have made it out had that newly installed automatic door not closed on his foot, breaking it clean from the clump of leg. The clay man toppled forward, crashing into a display of citrus fruit, before coming to rest on the sidewalk. Somebody call Hatzalah. Somebody call the Jewish News. Someone convene a Beit Din. Within minutes, the small strip of road between Community Arterial Hotham Street and the immutable border of Nepean Highway, beyond which no Jew dared venture, was overrun by an excited mob. They came from side streets and shop fronts and cafes and seven-seater vans. Even ladders that had been leaned against windows during the last worst time. When Hatzalah arrived, decisions were made in haste, and the clay man was carried by stretcher to the old cage in the nearby alley, where once the community came to toivel their dishes. At least he'll be safe here, said the chief medic, as he fastened the chain around the gate and snapped shut the lock. Throughout the afternoon into the night and the next day, Ripponlea pulsed with a rare festive energy. Crowds streamed through the alley, everyone hoping to catch a glimpse of the fabled homunculus. Some threw scraps of food, others splashed him with water. A few hurled clumps of mud, possibly with good intentions. They cheered and they jeered. They beseeched him to save them from these terrible times. For his part, the clay man sat in the corner with his arms wrapped around his tucked legs, hiding the shame of his stumps. He paid no mind to the debate that raged before him. I say he be made president of the community council, said one. Are you mad, said another. He must lead the community security group. Why must me think so small, said a third. He should run in the next federal election. It's our only hope. We should charge money to see him. It was only Friday's setting sun that gave the clayman reprieve as the area emptied and people went home to their Shabbat meals, at which there was only one topic of conversation. Alone in his cage, the clayman tried to stand, gingerly easing himself up against the back wall. It felt good to stretch his boggy limbs, and he looked to the heavens where the stars sparkled and a waxing moon glowed. To think he'd merely wanted a modest meal, something to stay his preternatural hunger. He'd not asked for any of this. He wanted nothing of these people and wished they wanted nothing of him too. Perhaps he'd have done better to choose a banana or a pear. A gust of wind whipped through the cage and he saw flecks of dirt, his dirt, catch the breeze. When the crowds returned the following night, few people noticed that the golem was diminished, that he had in fact eroded ever so slightly. For 2 weeks, the collective madness continued without respite or resolution as the community kept its vigil and the golem sat in the corner shrinking, surrounded by scraps of rotting food and the mulch of papers on which wishes had been written and tossed inside as if he were the temple wall itself. And so it went. The winds began to blow more frequently and the leaves turned to red, then yellow, then brown. The golem grew smaller, and so did the crowd. One Saturday night, soon after daylight savings had ended, the golem looked up to see only a smattering of curious strangers. Deprived of their promised miracle, the community had lost hope, and with it faith, and then interest. Even Arya the Nosy had stopped coming. Soon the tiny golem was alone, save for the odd shopper cutting through the alley from the nearby car park, who might glance with surprise or disdain if they glanced at all. Thus the golem was surprised to wake one afternoon to see a little girl standing against the cage, her face pressed into the wire. Blonde curls tumbled from her head. Her hazel eyes were set on him with curiosity and maybe even kindness. Although her lips moved, he could not make out any sound. He watched the way they rounded and closed over and over. She was repeating one word: why? The golem stood and approached the girl. He was no taller than she, and their eyes met as equals. She did not flinch or back away. The golem sighed and went to answer. He brushed his brow, accidentally wiping away the aleph that had given him life, leaving behind only mem and tough, met, death. What little remained of the golem crumbled to dust on the ground. Adar! Came a voice from the street beyond the alley, and the girl ran to her waiting father. Thank you.
There he is! Enemy number one!
Hila Blum lives in Jerusalem, where she was born and raised, and has been a literary editor for the past 27 years. Her debut novel, The Visit, was longlisted for the prestigious Sapir Prize for Israeli Literature in 2012, and her book, How to Love Your Daughter, won the 2021 Sapir Prize. Hila had planned on being with us tonight. However, circumstances beyond her control has meant that she has remained in Israel. Thankfully, she found some quiet moments to record her beautiful piece for us. All the way from Jerusalem, please welcome Hila Blum.
Golem Take 1. How to play Golem in the Circle. The children gather. They sit in a circle. One of them, child A, stands up and encircles the group with a small object in their hand, while the others chant an old song about a golem. As discreetly as possible, child A places the object behind the back of one of the other children. Child B, once realizing the object has been placed behind them, stands, picks up the object, and chases child A. Should child A succeed in completing a full turn around the group without being caught, they will take the vacant spot in the circle left by child B. But if child A is caught, they will be made to sit in the center of the circle and will be labeled the golem. Child B proceeds to circle the group with the object, and once again the children will sing their archaic chant. Golem Take 2. She dreaded that game. As a child, she dreaded all tag games. The anxiety of being caught, the strain of waiting with bated breath. In her childhood in Israel, these games were prevalent and fast, and she was slow. Playing the golem in the circle game, she was slow to notice the object placed behind her back, slow to rise, slow to chase, slow to escape, ending up as the golem, yielding to the power of her peers to transfigure her with their chant. Golem. The word pinned itself in her mind with dread. She did not know what it meant, but seated at the center of the circle, she was it. Golem, Take 3. 9th grade, creative writing class. Writing with prompts. The teacher hands them a list of words. The students are to choose one word and write down their understanding of it. She writes golem at the top of the page and neatly underlines it with a wavy line. By now, she knows that golems have something to do with incompleteness, with formlessness, with ancient stories about life endowed into matter through holy words and oath. And so she writes, golem is the pupa from which the butterfly emerges. It is a nickname for a stupid person. It is something which one might create and which might turn against its creator. Next, the teacher says they can write freely about whatever they want. She writes a short piece about a girl walking in her sleep. Golem, take 4. She's in 4th grade, attending a birthday party at the house of one of her classmates. It's raining, so they are compelled to play indoor games. And though they haven't yet plunged into the dangerous waters of Truth or Dare, their next round of Golem the Circle will easily, wordlessly expose her. The source of her anxiety is love. She's in love with a boy. For 2 years now, she has shown a tendency for love, but in many ways, he is her first. Within the boundaries of the classroom, the boy is like a source of constant heat around which she learns to hover. But outside the classroom, his presence makes her feel the weight of her limbs, as if she's ill. And now he is seated just one child away from her in the circle, sturdy and smiling. It's eerie how well she can see a boy, who she makes a point of not looking at. And when it's his turn with the object, she begins to recite prayers that cancel each other out quickly. Choose me not, choose me, don't choose me. Some boys like to play tricks. They'll walk around very slowly and then very fast, or they'll cunningly lean behind someone's back for a moment and move on without placing anything, but not him. He paces the circle gently with the object, a small soft ball, in his hand, and her back is burning with yearning and trepidation. Choose me not, please choose me, please. And she springs up. Oh, she springs up. She has yearned to feel the earthquake of the soft ball landing behind her back. And she springs up and she runs and she grabs the boy. The children roar. Their laughter is akin to holy words and oaths and something else which she can't discern. Something which defies applause and asserts humiliation. And when she finally looks, she realizes the boy is in her hands while the ball is still in his. Golem, take 5. She writes a short piece about a girl who walks in her sleep. Their teacher calls it free writing, but writing is never free. By now she's aware of the countless ways in which people sleepwalk in plain sight. At a concert, a violinist writhes with his violin under his chin and completely forgets himself in the music. On a bus, a young man cries while reading a book. At a stupid birthday party, a girl is doing the exact opposite of playing. She's still a golem and is scared of witnessing such public displays of intimate moments. She's still that same girl, compelled by the invasive gaze and the laughter of others to grow up. Golem, take 6. In the breakfast room of the small family hotel, where she stays with her 8-year-old daughter in Prague, the hotelier surprises her daughter with a baby chino. The child is enchanted. This is her first baby chino, and it makes her feel all grown up. After breakfast, they walk to the old Jewish cemetery and the old new synagogue. And on their way there, she tells her daughter an appropriated version of the story of the Golem of Prague. After the visit, they stroll the streets and step into a souvenir shop. The daughter carefully chooses a small drawing of a golem figurine. The drawing depicts a chunk of matter whose eyes are holes, and when they sit down in a cafe for a light meal, the child places it on the table, right in her mother's line of sight. These hollow eyes that cannot see but can be looked into, a window to its penetralia. Again, she's compelled to look at something that she does not want to see. She turns the drawing upside down. The daughter turns it back. She turns it upside down again. and her daughter looks at her with puzzlement. Why? But how can she explain? She puts the drawing in her bag and says, "So that it won't get dirty," and rapidly adds, "Would you like another baby Chino baby?" And the child nods with delight.
Did you like that one?
That was just child's play. I'm the real deal.
Yes, you are. Would you like to help me introduce the next one?
I'd love to, Mummy. Introducing Octopussy. Are you sure about this, Mummy?
I'm sure.
Octopussy. It sounds a little fishy.
We'll be okay.
Okay. Octopussy. MD, Honours, is a content creator and medical intern with ambitions to become a consultant gastroenterologist with a subspecialty interest in viral gut cleansers. Yuck. Career highlights in the entertainment industry include a cameo appearance in the Netflix documentary, My Octopus Teacher. Career highlights in the hospital system include dislodging a bottle of sacramental wine from the rectum of a man, a direct descendant of the very lost 13th tribe of Israel. Ugh. Ooh, ouch. Is she an enemy, Mummy?
A sea anemone, maybe? Please
Please
welcome Octopussy!
So many of you. Is this on? Great. So I owe every single person in this room an apology. And just like my mum's favourite novelty mug suggests, an apology is best served warm with a cup of tea. Or one of the perks of being a Jewish influencer is that local Jewish businesses send me things all the time. Like this tea I'm drinking now, this one's from a local business called Israel Chai. Do you get it? Israel. Yeah, you get it. You know, monetizing social media isn't as lucrative as people make it out to be. Same story with OnlyFans. Or do you not know about the adult content I used to make? It's how the whole Octopussy thing started. Okay, so back in 2019, I was studying med, like a good Jewish eldest child, but it was at Bond University in Queensland. It's private, we're talking $100,000 a year, and I had to pay my own way. And you know, the hours are grueling, so... Well, have you ever heard of tentacle erotica? You have. You've heard of it. Yeah, it's really big in Japan. Anyway, it was an obvious career path. You look judgy, but look, yes, I was making pornography, but it was on my terms. You know, I'm a feminist. And I was doing well, really well, until some asshole put my videos on RedTube, which is free, you know. So that was the end of that. But it's okay, you know, I'm resilient. I'm the grandchild of Holocaust survivors after all. So it's November 2021 and I'm walking to an exam and my phone pings and it's a DM from her. author, columnist, podcaster, commentator. She said she'd seen my content and she liked the feminist overtones and she wanted to collab. She had a few half-baked ideas at this point, maybe something with injectables to enhance my suckers, maybe some smut. The words she used were outrageous and polarising. She needed to organically boost her posts, which weren't really getting much traction at the time, which honestly surprised me because it's her we're talking about. Australia's most prominent feminist at the time. Anyway, she was due to come to the Gold Coast for a book tour, so we made a plan to meet at her hotel one night after a book signing. Well, the cocktails were strong, and so was the chemistry. So much so, she asked me if I wanted to go back to her room. She happened to have some camera equipment up there. We could make some content now, if you like. Which is how I found myself in her hotel room, leaning against a generic hotel painting while she fiddled with some lights. "I want to see you naked," she said. She was languishing on a reading chair at this point, so just imagine that. "I want to see you naked," she said. "I want to see them, all of them, your tentacles, not through a screen, but in the flesh." So I peeled off my dress, slave by slave, by slave, by slave, by slave, by slave, by slave, by slave. "Wow," she said, staring at my mantle, "you're so wet." She body scanned me hungrily. When her eyes reached my cavity, she asked me if she should call it my vagina or my oviduct on camera. "Best stick to Octopussy," I said, for brand recognition. She got up to press record, and that's when I remembered that we hadn't discussed specifics of my payment yet, and that always makes me anxious. So I thought, well, I better bring it up because, I have to be fully relaxed to jump into a scene. So I brought it up, and that's when the energy completely shifted. "Way to kill the mood," she said. "Money, enemy of creativity." "That hasn't been my experience," I said. "Unsurprising," she replied. "What does that mean?" "Babe, I've worked with your kind before." Your kind? Well, I did everything I could to hold back my tentacles, but I couldn't help it. It seemed to happen all at once. My locomotive arms knocked the tripod over, smashing the camera against the television. My tactile arms thrust out and ensnared her by the torso, 560 suckers latching onto her clammy skin. My feeding arms coiled their way around her neck, each muscle flex exerting more and more pressure until I willed my tentacles to let her go, but sometimes they have brains of their own, 9 to be exact. Finally, when she started turning blue, I flung her onto the bed before raising my arms, revealing my armpits, and squirted her head to toe. She lay there, frozen, speechless, reeking of fish ink and shock. Well, I should have left then and there, but my mum collects those little mini hotel shampoo and conditioner bottles, so I swiped some from the bathroom. Okay, and some chippies from the minibar for the Uber ride home. Before I made my dramatic slam door exit, I looked her dead in the face and said, "Mia Friedman has more Instagram followers than you." Me and my big beak. Remember, this is November 2021. Jump forward to October 2023 and you've seen her Instagram stories, her problematic post, her racist tweets, her retweets, the reposts, all this mess we're in now. I'm the reason. I started it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, I'm just trying to do what we're all trying to do. You know, trying to make sense of it all, trying to pinpoint the exact moment our friends, our colleagues, academics, influencers, the world turned on us. It'd be so much easier, wouldn't it, if it was a sex thing? A bad romantic encounter turned cancellation? But I wanted to come here tonight to Melbourne Jewish Book Week to say I'm sorry, just in case Australia's most prominent feminist doesn't give a shit about Jews because once she was humiliated by a Jewish octopus. Sorry, by a so-called Zionist. I haven't even been to Israel. Kashrut Authority blacklisted me. Tea's gone cold. It's okay. Clove was a bit overpowering anyway. Do you reckon I should let them know? I think I should. I should probably also let them know that my friend had a really weird experience after he drank a cup of this stuff. Poor guy thought he'd had an entire conversation with an octopus.
Pussy. Kosher or not kosher, I like her.
Okay, how's everyone doing? Alex Skovron is the author of 7 collections of poetry, a prose novella, and a book of short stories. He was born in Poland, lived briefly in Israel, and migrated to Australia as a boy. His most recent collection is Letters from the Periphery. His earlier volume of new and selected poems, Towards the Equator, was shortlisted in the Prime Minister's Awards. Alex's work has been translated into a number of languages, including French, Chinese, Czech, Dutch, and Polish. In 2023, he received the Patrick White Literary Award for his contribution to Australian literature. A warm welcome for Alex Skovron.
We have heard that somewhere among the remote archipelagos of the north, there exists a people who possess the knowledge of exactly when they will die. This is made possible by the unique nature of their psychophysiology, of a type not documented anywhere else in the known world. Accounts brought back by travelers who have visited the lands of the people of the clock, as one such visitor has named them, vary in their details, but are unanimous in their depiction of the astonishing characteristics of this remarkable race. Chief among these, knowledge of the day of one's death seems to reach back into the mists of antiquity, because their written and oral tradition, extending thousands of years into the past, contains numerous references to this capacity and crucial elements of the moral law that underpins their religion revolve around it. In fact, the people of the clock accept it as entirely natural state of affairs and are bemused at the notion of a life lived in ignorance of its actual duration, or to be more accurate, of a life whose second half is lived without the knowledge of precisely how much of it still remains. I say second half because it should be understood that each individual's foreknowledge of death is not attained until the exact midway point of that person's preordained life. Thus, one whose lifespan will be 50 years receives that knowledge at the age of 25. Another destined to live to 120 will make the discovery at 60, and so on. We can think of the event as akin to an hourglass being suddenly upended, marking the commencement of the person's second half-life. Nobody, however, knows in advance when that midway point in their life will arrive. But the other extraordinary feature of the clock people's unique physiology is its capacity to arrest the aging process itself, which stops at that precise switch point between the first and second half-life. This switch point, called the hinge, is the moment when all visible aging ceases. At that moment, facial features and bodily appearance become fixed, frozen in time, at what is effectively the prime of life. At this point also, every citizen receives a personally inscribed and calibrated clock, which begins to run backwards from that person's hinge moment, counting down minute by minute through the second half-life, so that it is a simple matter to calculate the future date and time of death. Not surprisingly, this people suffers from an obsession with, well, clocks. Clocks are universally worshipped, and especially during the first half-life, even prayed to, in the hope of gaining extra years before the arrival of the hinge. Some wealthy households underline their status by assembling impressive collections of clocks and other timepieces. The more unusual or exotic, the better. The second half-life, on the other hand, following the revelation that marks the hinge, usually produces in most people a far more nuanced attitude to clocks. The clock people's morbid preoccupation with time can be expressed in our common parlance as waiting for the hinge to hit. This can give rise to many complications, such as the question of whether somebody one meets is aging towards hinge or has already passed what we might term stoppage, meaning essentially stop of age. This often creates confusion, sometimes deception, and occasionally violence within relationships, especially among the various genders. And it has spawned a rich tradition of black humor. But it should be noted that a complex system of behavioral laws and regulations operates at all levels of society. This fundamental code of ethics is based on worship of an ancient scripture, a text from antiquity in the regions of the Middle Sea, comprising scattered passages from an obscure body of work called the Teaching. According to a second seminal text, the Telling, which is a compilation of the myths and oral history of the clock people, at the beginning of the world, the Creator had bestowed on every human this ability to foresee the day of death from midway point in life. However, as the legend goes, one race alone rebelled against this privilege, viewing it as a curse rather than a benediction. They were appalled by the prospect of looking forever forwards toward a death already known They wanted a different kind of knowing, the secret of what would await them after they died. The Creator, incensed at such ingratitude, not to say hubris, withdrew the power of foresight from all of humanity, with the exception of this single stubborn race whose punishment was to possess until the end of time the very knowledge they had so brazenly repudiated. One further point needs to be mentioned. A belief was put about by a certain school of theologians that the Creator had later relented and promised for the truly devout among the people of the clock a paradise of spiritual and sensual fulfillment after death. This has been roundly condemned as fake doctrine by most scholars and clerics, and dismissed as a heresy, probably introduced by travellers from the archipelagos of the south. More likely, it is a fiction invented by the clock people themselves, out of fear of the great unknown looming for each of them and growing ever larger as their clocks count down. Thank you.
Marina Benjamin has travelled all the way from London to be with us tonight. Her books include the memoirs Last Days in Babylon, longlisted for the Wingate Prize, The Middle Cause, finalist for the Art Foundation's Creative Non-Fiction Award, and Insomnia. Her essays have appeared in Granta, Aeon and the Paris Review, and her journalism in Prospect, The Guardian, The New Statesman and New York Times. Her latest memoir, A Little Give, completes her midlife trilogy. Please welcome Marina Benjamin.
Good evening. I'm going to read about Iraq. My people were steeped in superstition, spooked by their own shadows, vulnerable to omens and auguries, curses and fatalism, and the mischievous wiles of jinns. They were suspicious of anything unfamiliar or new beyond the tight Jewish community that inhabited the old city of Baghdad. Most of all, they were afraid of being seen. Eyes are present everywhere in the jewelry and amulets worn by the Baghdadi Jews, from abstract representations, just holes in ceramic discs, the Sabba Ayun or seven eyes, to hand-shaped gold pendants with glaring eyeballs painted in the palm, and ocular pendants, tapered and kohl-lined. Everywhere you looked, there were eyes looking back at you to ward off the evil intent of others, which was believed to cause actual harm. Researching my family's history in Iraq, I became fascinated by the distinctive architecture of the Baghdadi households. The way the houses presented towering fortress-like walls to the street, but softened up inside, to light and laughter funneled through a tiled courtyard that was wedged in on all sides, but open to the sky. Aerial maps of the old quarter reveal how these houses were crammed together higgledy-piggledy, like too many teeth crowding a mouth, along narrow curling streets that wound around themselves. Viewed as a whole, the neighborhood resembled nothing so much as a clenched fist. It was inward-leaning and outward-fearing. In today's vernacular, feeling seen has become a hybrid, a byword, for a form of radical empathy, whereby you recognize your own experience in words and images made by others, and feel validated by that experience, much in the way one affirms one's existence by looking in the mirror. In today's world, where it's so easy to disappear into nameless anonymity, The validation of being seen and of feeling seen ensures that you count. But among the Jews of Baghdad, being seen could be your undoing. When my child was born, my mother gave me an amulet to hide among their bedclothes. She handed it over like contraband, wrapped in Kleenex tissue and stuffed inside an ordinary envelope. Unraveling this shabby package, I found myself staring at something medieval-looking. A dumbbell-shaped pair of gall nuts, wrapped many times over with thin strands of battered gold, doing service as twine. More golden threads affixed a ceramic bead drilled with holes, remember the eyes, to the middle of the amulet where the dumbbell thinned. And from there dangled a delicate hamza, with its customary eye worked in gold filigree. I've seen similar amulets that have a wolf's tooth hanging from the center of the gall nuts to draw down an animal power that was fierce. The wolf was a favored talisman for these people who felt weak, even in numbers. I could never bring myself to bury the amulet in my baby's clothing, ceding to the fear of the evil eye, but I continue to inspect it from time to time, always wondering the same thing. How pagan it seems. And yet, if you believe in a spirit-infused world, in angels and emissaries, then you must accept demons and wicked spirits into the bargain as well. Forces of darkness arrayed against the envoys of good. But what could the evil eye actually do? According to my mother, who is a walking miscellany of Mizrahi superstition, it could make you ill or cause your hair to fall out. It could make pregnant women miscarry or bring death to the household. It caused husbands to leave their wives and wives to go mad at home. Almost any instance of ill fortune might be pinned on the underhanded workings of the evil eye, and so people did their best to avert it. You didn't want your friends or relatives knowing about your joy, so you hid it. Success, you made light of it. Ambition, you denied. Happiness and beauty, well, those were harder to hide, but you made sure that you apologized for it. The bride's veil, of course, being a prime example of just such a dissembling barrier. All of it, the hiding, the self-silencing, the amulet clutching, was to dissuade others in your stiflingly small community from casting jealous glances your way and seeing what you didn't want them to see. Unlike Ashkenazi communities in Europe, the Jews in the Middle East were rarely persecuted or subject to pogroms until the rise of Arab nationalism and Zionism upset the status quo. So the evil eye the Baghdadi Jews feared originated among their own. Their anxiety over being seen and known by their fellow Jews, that was the ghost that stalked their nightmares. My mother's sister was revered as something of a local mystic, gifted with second sight. Her particular skill lay in reading coffee cups, and at social gatherings, friends and family would queue politely in the hopes of getting such a reading. My aunt perched rimless glasses on the end of her nose and peered into the empty, dreg-spattered cup. She held the cup near her face, twisted it this way and that, and then she would emerge from a deep and silent contemplation to offer the querent insights about errant business partners and their jealous wives, pregnancies as yet only half-planned or unknown. She'd alert them to a financial windfall, acknowledge that they laboured under a heavy burden of worry over a business deal or an unmarried daughter, the failing health of a parent, or the wrongdoings of a reckless sibling. Often she saw evil eyes looking back at her from the dregs, some so startling they called for defensive action. One time she saw just such an eye in my cup, a bulbous, naked eyeball staring blindly from its depths. She insisted on performing an exorcism. I stood at her shoulder as she held a large silver spoon over a naked flame at the stove and tossed a ball of lead into it, heating it until it liquefied. Then she made me sit down. She got my mother to hold a pan of cold water above my head, into which she let the liquid lead drop from her spoon. There was a ferocious sizzle. All the while she chanted in Arabic some incantation against the spirits who eyed me. The lead had curdled in the water into a twisting shape like a mangled hand. My aunt snatched it up, rolled it in wax paper, and instructed me to sleep with the package under my pillow for 3 nights, then toss it over my shoulder at a crossroads the day after. I obeyed her because my aunt was a force of nature. Now I think she was a rare empath, someone who could see people's anxieties and auras and read things they weren't aware that they projected. From a dispassionate distance, the evil eye strikes me as rather humdrum, activated by jealousy, spite, or a desire for revenge, by all kinds of small meannesses. Far from being demonic, the evil eye is only too human, arising from the too close rub of others, from a lack of privacy and suspicion of individuality. When a community is so tight, when it looks only to itself for sustenance and is fearful of outsiders, it ends up cannibalizing itself under stress. When there is no space between you and your neighbor, or brother or mother, the evil eye offers you a way to distance yourself from others, to isolate for self-protection. There's a paranoid psychology to this thinking, which afflicted the whole Baghdadi community, afflicts its exiled members still, and it works to isolate women in particular, leading to social estrangement between them at times when they're most in need of a friend, when they are in love or ill or pregnant, worried about an abusive partner, worried about financial security or their health. Because of the evil eye, women in the Baghdadi Jewish community shunned close friendships, the exchange of confidences, or any expression of vulnerability. The evil eye left everyone islanded in their paranoid fear of being seen. Thank you.
Evelyn Krape is the Artistic Director of the Kadima Yiddish Theatre, and in 2023 she completed a highly successful season of Bloom and also a very Jewish Christmas carol for Melbourne Theatre Company, featuring a very cheeky golem. In March this year, Evelyn performed in the award-winning production of Yentl at the Malthouse Theatre and will be reprising her role at the Sydney Opera House in October later this year. Tonight she'll be reading The Fools of Chelm and the Stupid Carp by the great Yiddish writer Isaac Bashevis Singer, a story originally written for children, but a lesson in it for all of us.
In Chelm, a city of fools, every housewife bought fish for the Sabbath. The rich bought large fish, the poor small ones. They were bought on Thursday, cut up, chopped, and made into gefilte fish on Friday, and eaten on the Sabbath. One Thursday morning, the door opened at the house of the community leader of Chelm, Gronem Ox, and Zeinvol Nini entered, carrying a trough full of water. Inside was a large, live carp. "What is this?" Gronem asked. A gift to you from the wise men of Helm, Zeinvel said. This is the largest carp ever caught in the lake of Helm, and we all decided to give it to you as a token of appreciation for your great wisdom. Thank you very much, Gronemox replied. I read in a book that eating the brain of a carp increases wisdom. And even though we in Helm are immensely clever, a little improvement never hurts. But let me have a close look at him. I was told that a carp's tail shows the size of his brain. When Gronemox bent down to observe the carp's tail, the carp did something that proved he was not as wise as Gronem thought. He lifted his tail and slapped Gronem across the face. Gronemox was flabbergasted. Something like this has never happened to me before, he exclaimed. I cannot believe this carp was caught in the Helm Lake. A Helm carp would know better. In no time at all, the other wise men of Helm arrived. Treitelfool, Sender Donkey, Schmendrick Numskull, and Dopey Leckish. But this carp is a fool and malicious to boot. If I eat him, I could become foolish instead of cleverer. Then what shall I do with him? Asked Zeinvel Nini. Gronemox thought hard, and after a while he cried out, No man or animal in Helm should slap Gronemox. This fish should be punished. What kind of punishment shall we give him? Asked Treitelfool. All fish are killed anyhow, and one cannot kill a fish twice. He shouldn't be killed like the other fish, Sender Donkey said. He should die in a different way to show that no one can smack our beloved sage Gronemox and get away with it. Shall we perhaps just imprison him? Wondered Schmendrick Numskull. There is no prison in Helm for fish, said Zeinvel Nini, and to build such a prison would take too long. Maybe he should be hanged, suggested Dopey Leckish. How do you hang a carp? Sender Donkey wanted to know. This case needs lengthy consideration, Gronemox decided. Let's leave the carp in the trough and ponder the matter as long as is necessary. Being the wisest man in Helm, I cannot afford to pass a sentence that will not be admired by all the Helmites. If the carp stays in the trough a long time, he may die, Zeinvel Nini said. A former fish dealer, Noche, explained. To keep him alive, we must put him into a large tub, and the water has to be changed often. He must also be fed properly. You are right, Gronemox told him. Go and find the largest tub in Helm and see to it that the carp is kept alive and healthy till the day of judgment. When I reach a decision, you will hear about it. The 5 wise men went and found a large tub, filled it with fresh water, and put the criminal carp in it, together with some crumbs of bread, challah, and other titbits a carp might like to eat. Schlemiel Gronem's bodyguard was stationed at the tub to make sure that no greedy Helmite wife would use the imprisoned carp for gefilte fish. Meanwhile, Gronemox kept postponing the sentence. The carp ate, swam in the tub, and became even fatter than he had been. Not realizing that a severe sentence hung over his head, Schlemiel changed the water frequently because he was told that if the carp died, this would be an act of contempt for Gronemox and for the Helm Court of Justice. One morning, about a half a year later, the sentence became known. And when it was known, Helm was stunned. The carp had to be drowned. Gronemox had thought up many clever sentences before, but never one as brilliant as this one. Even his enemies were amazed at his shrewd verdict. Drowning is just the kind of death suited to a spiteful carp with a large tail and a small brain. That day, the entire Helm community gathered at the lake to see the sentence executed. The carp, which had become almost twice as big as he had been before, was brought to the lake in the wagon that carried the worst criminals to their death. The drummers drummed, trumpets blared. The Helmite executioner raised the heavy carp and threw it into the lake with a mighty splash. A great cry rose from the Helmites. "Down with the treacherous carp! Long live Gronemox! Hurrah!" Gronem was lifted by his admirers and carried home with songs of praise. Some people, however, began to say that there was no proof whatsoever that the carp really drowned. While hundreds of innocent fish were killed every Friday, they said that stupid carp lived in comfort for months on the taxpayers' money and then was returned sound and healthy to the lake where he is laughing at Helm justice. But only a few listened to these malicious words. They pointed out that months passed and the carp was never caught again, a sure sign that he was dead. It is true that the carp just might have decided to be careful and to avoid the fisherman's net, but how can a foolish carp who slaps Gronemox have such wisdom? Just the same, to be on the safe side, the wise men of Helm published a decree that if the nasty carp had refused to be drowned and was caught again, a special jail should be built for him, a pool where he would be kept prisoner for the rest of his life. The decree was printed in capital letters in the official Gazette of Helm and signed by Gronemox and his 5 sages. Treitelful, send the donkey, Schmendrick Numskull, Zeinvelnini, and Dopey Leckish.
The cello off.
Is on? Yeah, hey. Our final speaker for this evening is Arnold Zable. Arnold Zable is an acclaimed writer, novelist, much-loved storyteller, and recipient of an Australian Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature. His books include Jewels and Ashes, Café Scheherazade, The Fig Tree, Scraps of Heaven, Sea of Many Returns, Violin Lessons, The Fighter, The Watermill, and the new The Glass Horse of Venice, beautifully illustrated by Anita Lester, whose artwork has been featured on the screen behind us all tonight. He has published numerous features, essays, columns, poems, works for theatre, and lectured widely on the art of story in Australia and internationally. He is immediate past president of PEN International Melbourne and its current patron. Now, Arnold, unlike everyone else, will have a special introduction tonight. So, sorry to all the other participants. Here we go.
Soon to the canopy you will be led. Your mother arrives from the wide and she offers her hand for the angels to hold. O Hanele's daughters, a glorious bride, does Hanele glitter with gold or with pride? And Hannah, your mother says, bursting with joy, my Leah is marrying a wonderful boy. But suddenly, Hanele, why do you sigh, and why does your heart break? Why do you cry? Strangers are leading the bridal parade, while I stand unseen, alone and afraid.
We are going to the Yiddish theater, Father announces, as if speaking of something extraordinary, sacred. A winter night, 1958. We approach a two-story building in Lygon Street. Lights blaze from the arched windows. Beneath the stage, a spotlit band plays a medley of folk melodies. The curtain opens to a transparent inner curtain. Behind it, the ramshackle room of the grave digger's hovel. The window overlooks a backdrop of gravestones. The narrator intones, many years ago, Napoleon buried a treasure as he retreated through the river valleys of the Pale. Napoleon, no less, steps front of stage to the beat of a drum, followed by aides carrying a box. Boom, boom, boom. The trio disappear in the wings and reappear in silhouette, lowering the box among the tombs. The veil drops, the hovel erupts into life. The townsfolk beat a path there, drawn by the rumours that the gravedigger's son, the village idiot, knows where the treasure is interred. He leads them, lantern in hand, chanting, Kumtale, Lomel suchen, come everyone, let us search. The procession winds to the cemetery where the frenzied villagers ransack and desecrate the graves. The Melbourne cemetery looms into view as we step from the hall. The spirits of the dead, Father whispers, are rising from their tombs in white shawls. As we retreat, I imagine the corpses bent in midnight prayer, while all is dark, bar a single flame in the hands of a fool. The village idiot was portrayed by Moshe Potoshinsky, his sister by Mila Weislitz, Moshe's wife. To this day, I recall their intensity, their blazing eyes, but knew nothing of their haunted lives. Moshe was born in 1903. In 1924, he enrolled in the Warsaw Yiddish Drama Academy. He became a master of Kleinkunst, Yiddish cabaret. In 1932, he joined the legendary Vilna troupe and fell in love with an 18-year-old actor, Mila Weislitz. Her parents, Yankov and Yocheved, were veteran members of the troupe. In 1920, a Dibuk entered the Vilna troupe. The Dibuk was written by Sholomansky, a chain-smoking revolutionary who led ethnographic expeditions in Yiddish hamlets beyond the Pale. The play was a distillation of the folklore of a vanishing world. Ansky died in 1920 without seeing the play performed. The troupe worked feverishly to stage it in Warsaw at his Schlesien 30 days after his death. The premiere was a triumph. The audience was mesmerized by the tale of Leah and Hanan. The couple are promised to each other by their fathers before birth. Leah's father ignores the vow. Leah is betrothed to another. A devastated Hanan takes to the Kabbalah. He succumbs to the powers of darkness and dies. Leah wanders off to the cemetery in her bridal gown to invite her mother's spirit to the wedding. She senses Hanan's presence. Leah, Hanan enters Leah and possesses her. In Leah is a reiner Dibuk, the messenger cries. The rabbis enter a mighty battle. Finally, Leah is exorcised. The wedding canopy is readied again. But for a fatal moment, the bride is left on her own. Again, Leah senses Hanan's presence. So strong is their longing, the couple are reunited in death. Leah laments, unborn children, never mine, lost forever, lost in time. Yankov and Yocheved were in the premiere cast of the Dibuk. The play took the troupe all over Europe. Miller played hide and seek among the costumes as the train hurtled from town to town in 1932. As she was about to make her debut, Miller fell in love with a young actor, Moishe Potoshinsky. The couple eloped, took to the road, performed Yiddish cabaret. May 1940, the Nazis invade Belgium. Miller and Moishe perform underground. They are betrayed and interned in the Lenin's transit camp. Still, they perform. April 19, 1943, they are herded into cattle wagons. Auschwitz, left, right, death, slave labor. Miller is stripped, shorn, tattooed. The women are in shock. Suddenly, an inmate points to Miller. I know you. I saw you on stage. You must perform. Here? Are you mad? Especially here, the women plead. They wrapped a kerchief around Miller's bare head, and she performed. And for a moment, the inmate's suffering was stilled. Nearby, in Bunamonovich, Auschwitz III, Moishe was spending the first of 630 days in hell. From his throat, there came the howl of a dog. Then he clenched his fists and hissed, "Live, live, live." Weeks later, while descending a flight of stairs under a load of bricks, he hummed the first lines of the Dibuk. Why, oh why, did the soul fall from the highest heights to the lowest depths? The greatest fall contains the upward flight. In that moment, Moishe decided to perform in the barracks at night. After one performance, a prisoner shouted, "If we've lived to sing in camp, we will live to see the Messiah." Miller and Moishe survived. What now? What else? The couple took to the road. Wherever they performed, survivors received them with joy. Yet, they longed for a reunion with loved ones, an exorcism from a lost world. February 1947. They are greeted by Yankov and Yocheved in circular key. They have not seen each other for 9 years. Yankov had left Poland on a world tour in 1938. Stranded in Melbourne as war broke out, he assembled a theatre troupe and named it after David Herman, the revered director of the Debuk. The troupe performed in the New World as the Old World burned. March 1947. The couple performed their first Melbourne concert. Moishe in elegant jacket and bow tie, Miller, her once shorn hair cascading over shoulders and back. The show was called We Will Live. An unforgettable night, a critic wrote. The couple toured Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Israel, the US, many unforgettable nights. Moishe returned with plans to create a national Yiddish theatre, but like many before him, he sold schmatters by day and occasionally acted at night. Moishe died in 1985, Miller in 1993. On her deathbed, she confirmed the rumour. She couldn't bear children because of experiments conducted by Dr. Mengele in block number 10. Unborn children, never mind, lost forever, lost in time.
Arnold Zable, everybody. Soon to the canopy you will be led. Your mother arrives from the world of the dead, and she comes to your wedding in silver and gold, and she offers her hand for the angels to hold. O Chaneleh's daughters, a glorious bride, does Chaneleh glitter with gold or with pride? And Chaneh, your mother says, bursting with joy, my Leah is marrying a wonderful boy. Suddenly, Chaneleh, why do you sigh? And why does your heart break? Why do you cry? Strangers are leading the bridal parade, while I stand unseen, alone and afraid. The living are dancing with those that they see, but only the dead will be dancing with me. And the daughter of Chaneh is married that day to the bridegroom who's waiting to dance her away. And as the klezmorim they sing and they play, and all through the dancing the spirits they stray, the prophet Elijah, he dances and sings, and silver and gold are the blessings he brings, and shekels slop over the prophet's gold cup, and the dead and the living both gobble them up. Soon to the canopy you will be led. Your mother arrives from the world of the dead.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Melbourne Jewish Book Week 2024. Please welcome back to the stage your storytellers. Come on, Bram Presser, Eleanor Reissa, Evelyn Krape, Marina Benjamin, Alex Skovron, Arnold Zable, and Octopussy, aka Tammy Sussman, our cellist, Alice Hurwood and Jeannie Kim, and our amazing pianist, Susan Ann Walker. Thank you so much.
And Elise.